Okay, this is going to be a quick tutorial for how to get a small pod into orbit. It's designed for a beginner to KSP. If you can already get stuff into orbit, you can go ahead and skip this. We'll do some more advanced techniques in another tutorial. So the first thing you want to do is turn on SAS. That's the one that keeps your craft oriented in whichever direction you set. Throttle up to full and engage your engines. I'm going to include this craft in the file in the YouTube video, so you can play around with it if you want. It's very simple. It's got two outer boosters that feed directly into the center engine, center fuel tanks. So only the outer fuel tanks are draining right now. When those run out, we'll stage them off, and we'll have the center fuel tanks completely full. This is actually similar to the Falcon Heavy, except I'm using different engines. I have the gimbaling engine in the middle and the non-gimbaling engines on the side. Honestly, it didn't matter. This particular craft will work with whatever. So we're heading straight up out of the densest atmosphere first before we turn and pitch over. Normally that's done at about 10 kilometers. I wasn't paying attention, did it a bit late. It's not really a big deal. You want to roll to the 90-degree heading, and you want to be pitched about 45 degrees. Alright, so the outer stages ran out of fuel. We ejected them. Now the inner stage has a full tank. We're going to keep at this 90-degree heading, 45-degree orientation, until our apoapsis, which is the highest point in the orbit, gets to be about 50,000 meters. Through this entire ascent, we're just leaving the engines completely full throttle. There are some advanced techniques. We'll go over those in a different tutorial. If you just want to get into orbit, just leave them at full with this craft. Alright, so our apoapsis got to about 50,000 meters, so we're going to roll over. So we're completely level with the ground now. And we're going to keep burning like this. As we orbit the planet, our heading was actually going to pitch up slightly. It's not a controlled maneuver, it's just we're locked into one orientation, and as we orbit, that orientation changes relative to Kerbin. We're not going to worry about this too much. It's going to be, for this ascent, it's going to be very minor. So you can see we're picking up speed. We're keeping an eye on our apoapsis. When this gets to around 100,000 meters or 100 kilometers, we're going to cut the engines. When you're orbiting, it's important to remember that you don't just need to get up. Most of the speed you gain needs to be horizontal, because orbiting is falling over the horizon, so you need to make sure that you pick up enough horizontal velocity. So our apoapsis is now about 100 kilometers, and we're going to stage off this bigger part of the rocket. Now it's still got fuel left, but it's done what it needs to do. So if you mess up with this craft taking off, that's fine. It's got some extra fuel. You can get back on course. Now you notice we had a really big craft. We had 6 fuel tanks total just to get us onto this suborbital velocity. But that's because we were lifting a lot of weight. We were lifting those engines, the extra fuel, all of that. Now that we're in orbit, and the entire payload is just this tiny little capsule, we have a tiny engine and a tiny fuel tank. We actually have almost as much potential change in velocity, potential delta V, in this little thing here as we did in all the rest of that rocket. So we have 90 units of oxidizer compared to it. I think it was about 1,000 total in the other one, but because our payload is so much lighter, it doesn't matter. So we're going to time warp here. until the apotheosis. Then we're going to face the prograde heading. That's the direction we're facing. It's signified by the circle with the 3 arrows pointing out. Then we're just going to do a short burn here. I throttled up, but I forgot I hadn't actually activated the engine, so now we activate the engine, go back out to the map view. Watch our periapsis, which is the lowest point in our orbit. And now we have a roughly circular 100-kilometer orbit. Hope this tutorial was helpful. If there's any questions or anything that wasn't clear, please post in the comments. I can either replace this video, post a new one, and I will do some advanced orbiting stuff and explain exactly what some of these other rocketry terms mean. And to borrow from Scott Manley, whose tutorials are also amazing, fly safe.